Yo, hello guys. How are you doing? Bonisile here, live with Footy Notes on Thanksgiving Day in America. It's Thanksgiving Day, and just watching sports today, spending the day solo. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate the day. I'm an expat, don't have lots of folks around me today, and had a few invitations to be fair, but chose to spend the day solo. Miss my own family. In South Africa and all that kind of stuff. I'm coming here to record football reaction, so I'm gonna get straight to that. So today I'm talking about Arsenal's 3-1 win at home to Bayern Munich. This game took place yesterday, and lots of talk since the game is finished about, Arsenal being the best team in the world, best team in Europe, and all this good stuff, which, I think a lot of football people, a lot of people who analyze football, we can all be prisoner to the moment. So I'm not gonna tell people how to respond, but I will share my view on all of this, right? So my take on it is I don't think Arsenal will care very much about being the best team in November. I don't really think they will care about that. I think what they will care about is making sure that they're learning with each challenge that they take like that they deal with along the way. And Mikel Arteta is gonna be, as much as anybody else, gonna be very aware that nothing is won at this time of the year. He's had several times where he's been the leading horse in the race in England and not seen it over the line yet. So, as an Arsenal fan, I'm not trying to be a downer or anything like that, but I do think it's probably the outside noise more than like internally that people think, that everything is done now, foregone conclusion. Arsenal are going to win the Premier League. They're going to run away with the Champions League too. I think they look like the best team right now. They do. But, people like to project too far ahead sometimes, and that is not always helpful. It's not always helpful. So luckily we have a group of mature, smart people, at the club, top level and coaching staff, as well as in the playing crew now. Like the playing squad is as mature and balanced as it's been since, I would say, the early 2000s, in my opinion. So back to this game, though, I think Bayern Munich came in good form, and they've started well too. They are another team that's been getting a lot of praises for the way they've started the season, right? I think rightfully, when you play the way they have played, it's deserved that people give you flowers. And so, I don't think there's any fuss around that. But one thing became really clear to me, the first half was very well contested. Bayern, like their coach said at the end of the game, they thought maybe they would edge the game if it continued to go the way the first half had gone. It was very clear that Bayern had taken a very man-on-man, like man-to-man approach, and their press was really aggressive. They set good traps. They're very good with their pressing. So Arsenal, in response to that, decided, okay, we will play, but we're not going to overdo it. We're not going to be so proud as to try to play through your press every single time. We will do it from time to time, but we will also go along when it's called for. And they balanced that really well, which was frustrating for Bayern Munich, as it was reflected in Kimmich's post-match comments. He was very scathing of Arsenal's long balls, and said they relied on set pieces, which was a bit, I think, salty, if I'm being honest, because Bayern's only goal of the game, came through a beautiful long ball by Joshua Kimmich, by the way. So for him to, complain or whine about Arsenal playing long balls, it was a bit rich, if I'm being honest. I think teams do this, by the way. I know Arsenal had a period in the past where we used to complain about teams playing long balls against us and saying, yeah, you can't compete. And, we're seeing it with Liverpool and Slot recently as well. Him complaining about teams going long. Teams are going to do the things that work for them. That's football. The other team gets to do tactics too. The other team doesn't have to play the way you want them to play. And I think somebody needs to remind Joshua Kimmich of that. Arsenal were not in that game to do things that Bayern wanted them to do. to win that game to win, and they did. So they struggled a lot with set pieces too. So I understand the frustration because like Bayern had a hard time dealing with the set pieces that Arsenal, especially corners. It felt like Arsenal were going to score every time they had a corner, and that was the main theme in the game for sure. They couldn't live with Arsenal set pieces, but I think they kept the ball better than Arsenal, Bayern, you know. But Arsenal, with 40% of possession, they shaded almost all the other important statistics in this game. Like they had more shots than Bayern of good quality. They had, let me come back here and take a quick look one more time. They did some really good work with 40% of the ball, Arsenal. And what was fascinating for me was to see, yep, total shots 13 to 8 of Bayern, shots on target, 8 shots for Arsenal, 2 shots for Bayern, and 7 big chances for Arsenal to Bayern's 1. So like in the statistics that really matter outside of ball possession, where Bayern had a lion's share of the ball, like Arsenal they had more than 3 times the XG that Bayern had, 3.11 according to FootMob stats. Bayern had 0.65 XG. They were not bad. They played a good game. It was a game of small margins. However, for them to whine as if Arsenal were just doing long balls is disingenuous, because I remember a few times where we did play some really good passes and work our way up the phases through the pitch, especially as we started to feel a bit more confident as the game was progressing. Like we started to wear them out a little bit because we were able to live with them, and they couldn't impress us the way they've trapped teams like Chelsea, teams like PSG, and the rest of the other teams that they've played against that like to play through. Arsenal didn't do that, and would have been done for Arsenal to try, because like Bayern, they've got as good a press as anybody I've seen in Europe so far this season. So those are some of the big themes that I kind of observe. But the thing I'm going to do in this episode is basically talk through some of the players, like tell the story of the game through the players, because it gets really hard with this Arsenal team because there's good performance after good performance after good performance. And it's so easy to overlook people's contributions, and we highlight the mistakes they make when they do make a mistake, because the mistakes are so rare. David Raya, he didn't have an eventful game. Bayern didn't have too much, all about 1 shot on target, and they scored from that, from what I can remember from when I was looking at the stats. And they had, XG of 0.65. Raya didn't have a busy game, but, most of the time he did what he needs to do to give us an advantage and pass the ball, be secure on the ball, and come out and claim things and clean up, basically, behind our defense. But I want to start by talking about Jurriën Timber, who scores the opener and has another game that's just like what he's been doing basically this season, which is run the right-hand side of the game. He just runs it. Saka +1, sometimes it's Zubimendi, sometimes it's Rice. A lot of times in the last few games, it's Merino with Timber and Saka working, giving them kind of like those Odegaard angles, because as it doesn't go too far towards the right flank as much as Merino does, even though as a supposedly the midfielder in the two, the way the team lineup is kind of put up in the formats of these big apps that put out information on these things. Merino was playing a lot more in the midfield, just like I had seen his heat map in the Premier League game at the weekend. He looked more like a right-sided number 8 than a number 9, and Eze looked more like the number 9 on his heat map in the North London derby. In this one, their heat maps looked kind of similar, and Merino had a lot of touches again in deeper parts of the field. A lot on the right, some in the middle, a little bit on the left, but not so much in the box, except for the few headers that he had. So he had a game. So I guess I've jumped into Merino into this, but like back to the Timberness of what I was trying to talk about. But Timber is just some guy now who was basically playing at a level of like best in the league kind of I know people are trying to compare him to Reece James, and it's fun because Chelsea are the next opponent. But I think they're different players. I think Reece James is a bit more fullbacky than Timber. Timber is a bit more dribbly. He's a bit more better at running with the ball. I think Reece James is a better like wand of a right foot on him. He can cross balls. He can take free kicks. Timber is not really good at that. But everything else, defending, dribbling, and running with the ball, playing in tight spaces, I think Timber has that in greater qualities than Reece James. Did a lot of really good work with Saka. Can't really fault this guy for much this season. I think with Gabriel being gone, he's now, for me, the front runner for player of the season for Arsenal. And there are a lot of good candidates. You know, and Calafiori might say, what about me? But and maybe Trossard. But Big Gabby and Timber for me have been the star performers this season. I think the next guy I want to talk about is Declan Rice. Declan Rice was another guy. I mean, I guess he might be another shout for player of the season. He was so big in this game, and he seems to be getting better in the second half of games. It's kind of crazy, the engine that he has. And he has this really good run that almost results in a goal. And unfortunately, if that turns into a goal, that would have been one of the moments of the season. It's a lung-busting run. It's almost like he's running without the ball and the guys chasing him have the ball. And he keeps finding ground and he takes a left-footed shot that for some way or another, people are going to be talking about Neuer and how bad he was. He actually had a lot of good moments, Neuer. But I think because of the Bayern high line, he's having to do a lot more at age 40. So, sometimes it's not going to work out. It's worked out every game for them this season, except like one or two. One was a draw, and then yesterday was a loss. But yeah, Rice was just awesome. He gets to wear the captain's armband in a meaningful game for Arsenal for the first time in my recollection. From minute 67 to minute 80, he wins the ball back in such crucial positions, Rice, and he starts off these kind of like breakaway counterattacks due to his ability to press. He did this at Burnley, I can remember, and he's done it a few other times where he doesn't pan out and lead to a goal. In this game, he dispossesses or he steps in to intercept, pass into midfield from a Bayern backline player, and basically he sets us up to build up to Noni Madueke's goal. So Rice is there again, winning the ball back, driving us forward, and that led to a goal that went this time, and as it did at Burnley. And he's just putting out 7s to 9 out of 10s week in and week out now. It's very hard to see him going back into just being a number 6. Really, I think the acquisition of Zubimendi has really allowed for Declan Rice to do a lot more in midfield, and he plays ahead of Zubimendi a lot more, actually. And they will both come in sometimes and be this 2 center back players, and our center backs will go to like the fullback positions. And there's a lot more like in their tandem where Rice is further up front to dispossess and lead us that way, and Zubimendi is kind of like quarterbacking, playing a little bit deeper, playing some long diagonals, doing some tiki-taka as well. Like, they complemented each other almost as well as Big Gabby and Saliba, but midfield version. The complements in this Arsenal team right now is just starting to look incredible. Like I just talked about Saka and Timber. You have Big Gabby and Saliba. And then Rice and Zubimendi are another tandem that's just working really, really well. And then ahead of them, you will have Eze. Since Odegaard's been out, you have Eze +1, and that's another pair. And the Eze-Merino dynamic has been beautiful the last couple games. And then on the left, you will have Leandro Trossard who got injured in this game, but Trossard with Calafiori, who basically is a very relational player. He finds relationships everywhere on the pitch. But there's a lot of pairs that are starting to develop, and then other people joining in and around those pairings. But yeah, Zubimendi all over the place, key in build up, drops in, sets us up, puts us in motion to advance us up the pitch. And Merino again, like another big performance by him. I'm not doing number grades or things like that, but like he is just again another player who will fight for the cause, put himself about, could have scored a couple of headers, especially I like the one in the second half where from a corner, a Rice corner, it just goes slightly wide. There's one that he heads in the second half as well in the 57th, 58th minute, I think, right to Neuer. But like he's got some good plays that he also sets up for teammates. He's such an unselfish player. I'm really impressed by him. I'm kind of getting used to having him at the top. Even though, I know, of course, as soon as Gyökeres comes back, Merino is going to have to sit down, but he's doing some really important work for the team at the moment. And that's been incredible. And Saka is just Saka. Nobody blinks now that Saka walks out with the armband and nobody even talks about it. He in this game, again, was, an instigator. He gets the assist for the Timber goal, but he does a lot of really good work defensively. Times, he hangs onto the ball, looks for contact a bit much sometimes, but like that, you're picking nits to find faults in his game offensively. But yeah, he's such a reference player for us, and especially when you have Merino up front who vacates a centre forward role a lot. It leaves Saka and Trossard or whoever is playing on the left with a lot more work to do in terms of like being a centre forward or being the most advanced player in the team. But then he'll also be running and working all the way at right back. Like that one time where he spun Konrad Laimer, who fouled him blatantly and got a yellow card out of it, but he was so salty that he got carded for that. I'm just like, bro, like it's a card. But yeah, Bukayo is just another guy like Timber who I think sometimes we just get fatigued of praising him maybe or something. But like he is such a pivotal player in the way we build. And that right-hand side is responsible for a lot of things that end up working out on the left-hand side. And finally, nobody's talking about the lopsidedness of this team. Now, both sides are complementing each other. Sometimes we build up the right and it ends up on the left. And in the second goal, the build-up is on the left and it ends up with Madueke scoring on the right. We're a bit more balanced, and it's going to be interesting to see how we keep that up when Odegaard plays more, because he's a very ball dominant player who hangs right. With Eze as a number 10, he's not ball dominant, but he's involved in big moments, like in this game, for example. He didn't have a hat trick, but he didn't have too different of a game to what he did in the weekend. But it just, sometimes he scores the goals, sometimes he's the build up to the goal. Like in this game, he's involved in the lead up to the second goal, and definitely he gives the assist to Martinelli for the third goal, kind of like he did in the City game. But Martinelli had, I think, an easier job this time because Neuer, he got the lucky bounce, and then Neuer was kind of like in a bit of no man's land, and Martinelli was able to round him off and put it away. Noni, happy to have him back. Happy to have Noni back. He gets his first goal for Arsenal, plays on the left and finishes the game on the right. So he got about 60 plus minutes in his legs because Trossard got injured. And I think Noni being back is going to be really crucial, especially with Martinelli too, because Bukayo has been running out quite a bit and we don't want him to get Trossarded and Gyökeres as well. Like these other guys who've been overused up front. So hopefully, probably not against Chelsea, but hopefully Saka doesn't start all the games in the next several weeks, because Arsenal are in a 30-day period where they're playing about 9 games. 9 games in 30 days is a lot. So Trossard, unfortunately, he gets injured in this game. He's done his work. I hope that it's not longer than a month. If it is something significant, hopefully it was just some tightness and he was being cautious. But if it is an injury, it looks like it's a calf injury, and hopefully it's not something that's going to keep him out for too long, because he's been very important. He's having his best start to a national season since he's been in the club. He's had some good finishes to the seasons, but he's having a very good start to the season. And I like Gabi, big Gabi. he's been a very massive player for Arsenal. One player who's next on my kind of like player talk is Miles Lewis Skelly. Miles had I think his toughest challenge in an Arsenal shirt and frustrated some people. I see some fans online that I talked to who were unhappy with his performance. And all I wrote in response to one of my guys online that I kind of talked to quite a bit was time. This is the journey. This is the journey. Miles hasn't been getting regular minutes. And unfortunately, yes, it's true also that like in a squad like Arsenal's, you have to use the chances you get. But at the same time, we can't forget that this kid has just turned 19. He's just turned 19 and he's playing against Bayern Munich, who have been wiping the floor with a lot of teams that they've played against. He's playing against Mikel Arteta, who starts for France any given day. He starts for Bayern Munich all the time. And Bayern were cooking in that first half. And Miles, whilst he struggled, he didn't embarrass himself. He made a few loose passes, and I think he'll be better off for this challenge, I think. However, it was a tough day for him, and I'm glad that, he gave his all for that hour or so. And then when Calafiori came on, he was fresh enough to capitalize on a desperate Bayern team who was trying to chase the game, maybe trying to get the win or trying to find a way back into the game because Arsenal were dominating at that point. And the crazy thing is that, like, even though Miles didn't have the best of games, he was part of us building strength in the game. And by the time we pulled him out of the game, we had kind of regained or reclaimed control of the game. I don't think we lost control of the game, but Bayern, I think Company was right in saying he thought they were edging the contest leading up to halftime. But in the second half, Miles was also part of that Arsenal resurgence into the dominance of the game. So it was a tough outing for him. I'm not going to, lie about it, but also I'm not going to go over the top on a 19-year-old who just played against one of the best teams in European football right now, whilst not getting regular game time. He is learning, and hopefully, the development continues, and I have no reason to believe it won't. Mosquera, on the other hand, because that was the other change in that Arsenal left-sided of the defense, Mosquera was just a seamless fit. Seamless. It's been a long time since we've seen Arteta go with a right-footed left centre-back, because we tended to go for the right-left combo in midfield in that central part of the defense. And Christian Mosquera, you could have never even, it was a non-event that he was there. He was so impressive, just like he had been when he was having a run of games in Saliba's absence. He's so front-footed, very comfortable anywhere of the pitch. He followed players all the way into the Bayern Munich defensive half. He helped us with our pressing big time. So clean on the ball, like so clean and confident on the ball. Can't press. He's very press resistant. I think that the ceiling on this kid is something we don't even know what it is at this point. It's because also we have Saliba and Gabi, but Saliba at this age, he was still being sent out on loan. Now, I'm not out here saying this kid is going to be better than Saliba, but my God, he has a chance to be as good or close to it. He's already a player that's contributing, and we got him for like, what, 14 million pounds or something like that. He is incredibly impressive for a young central defender. Arsenal are very fortunate to have closed this deal, because if this kid was tied to a longer-term contract, I think he goes in the current market for 50, 60, 70 million pounds, considering how young he is and the ceiling. I don't want to complain about getting him on the cheap, but my God, he was really impressive again in this game, and no problem. And Calafiori, happy that he got some rest, contributed significantly once he came onto the pitch, almost got himself a goal, 90th minute assist for Noni Madueke. Happy to see Gabriel Martinelli, another sub. I think on the subs bench, it was more about, like, for me, getting minutes in people's legs. Martinelli getting minutes, that was crucial because he's going to be important. Madueke, getting minutes and a goal, both of them scoring, was crucial for Arsenal because, busy season at the moment, coming up all the way up until mid-January. And then you have, Ben White and Martin Odegaard coming on the 81st minute for Eze and Timber. And to be honest, I really am looking forward to the Chelsea game over the weekend. Chelsea are impressive at the moment. Maresca is turning out to be a good coach for them, and a lot of people, including Chelsea fans, they were the loudest in his criticism. But he's doing a good job. I didn't like how he did his press conferences talking about players and the way he handled the Sterling stuff. But as on the football side of things, he seems to be amongst one of the better coaches at the moment. And of course, he's working with some of the best talent in world football under 23, basically. So that can't hurt, a coach when you have the depth of squad that Chelsea do have. I think they're the only other team that can probably match Arsenal's depth in terms of quality players. Where I think Arsenal edge this over a season is the fact that, young players can be a bit up and down in their consistency. And Arsenal right now has got a bit more. Arsenal has more players who are in their prime years and who have been able to find a bit more consistency in their game. But on a given day, like Sunday, for example, it's going to be hard to call this one because it's at Stamford Bridge and Chelsea have some really good talented players up front who can give you problems. So I think we're in for a treat for this one as the footballing community. And I don't want to focus on the Chelsea-Barcelona game leading up to the game on Sunday because I don't think that game is going to tell you much about who Chelsea are when it comes to playing Arsenal, because Barcelona just give too much up going the other way. They give too much up defensively. But I'm excited to see this game. I will be looking very keenly at the build up and seeing what's what. Hopefully Arsenal don't have any more injuries beyond Trossard, and maybe they regain Gyökeres, and I'm sure Chelsea will regain a player or two. I think from what I heard from Maresca's press conference before the previous round of Premier League games, was Cole Palmer isn't too far away, and he might be back for them. Imagine that, him being back. Estevao seems to be settling in nicely at Chelsea, and is quite a talent. So it's going to be an exciting game. Let's see how that one works out. But yep, I have hit my 30-minute mark, so I'm going to stop here, my friends. Thank you for supporting. Please subscribe, like, and do all the things that podcasters like for people to do. Cheerio. Happy Thanksgiving.